Medicare. The Social Security Trust Fund becomes insolvent in 2038, and the Medicare Hospital Fund by 2024. What steps would you take in dealing with these problems?
These were two problems. Having worked with older adults through my rehabilitation career and as I was licensed as a nurse home administrator, therapist, rehab manager, those were the two pending crises that I thought everybody knew about when I showed up in Washington for that first day in 2009. And it's still a significant issue. We have taken action, and we have to make a commitment to save Medicare and save Social Security. Some of the things that we've done so far on the Social Security side, we have put significant reforms in a bipartisan way. President Obama signed the legislation that's being implemented into the Social Security Disability Income Program. That program was looking to go bankrupt probably within the coming year, with dramatic decreases in financial support. And for those folks who are truly significantly disabled and rely on that for their livelihood, what a crisis that would create for families and individuals. We fixed that with legislation that we had, bipartisan legislation that we passed. We also looked at trying to do some things for Social Security in other ways. They're small, but you take small steps. There were a lot of felon fugitives who were receiving Social Security checks. And I don't think anybody would agree with that. We actually had to take legislative action to fix that. On the Medicare side, Medicare, we actually passed something, a piece of legislation that was good for our physicians and our doctors. It prevented significant cuts in reimbursement. Medicare today, and it is a government-run program, but it only pays 80 to 90 cents for every dollar of cost that a physician and a hospital have. A physician or a hospital cannot afford to treat just Medicare patients, unfortunately, because of that underpayment. We did reforms on that in a significant way, looking at income limits and those types of things. Actually, in the end, it was good for all America, because not only did it extend the life of the Medicare Trust Fund, but it saved about $2.9 trillion over 10 years from the national debt and the national deficit. But there's a lot more that we need to do. Thank you.
Well, I think the first thing we have to agree on is that we're not going to privatize Social Security, right? Paul Ryan had this great idea in a budget that he proposed, I think, back in 2013 to privatize Social Security, and I believe Mr. Thompson voted for it. It didn't pass, obviously, but I think we need to first, after we watch the financial meltdown, just for a moment, close your eyes and imagine what would have happened if our Social Security money was invested in Wall Street. How many people do you know that rely on their Social Security check being exactly what it is? And when the meltdown happened, oops, sorry, it's gone, right? So let's just all agree that privatization is not the way to go. If we mean that we want to preserve Social Security, we have to lift the cap, right? The earnings cap right now sits around $118,000. When Social Security was first put in place, a Democratic ideal, let me point out, the cap was set at a level that was meant to capture 80% of the income earned by all Americans. Let me promise you that a $118,000 cap does not capture 80% of the income any longer. It captures about 40% of the income. How do you expect to keep this program going if you're not putting the money into it that you need to be? So first and foremost, we need to lift the cap so that the first $225,000 that each of us earn every year is ticked just a little bit for Social Security, right? We have to keep with the times. So firstly, privatization, not an option. We have to lift the caps. And when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid, we need to make sure that fraud is being sussed out and prevented. But interestingly enough, in this same small government push that came about around 2008, 2009, guess who they cut the budget for? Investigators and prosecutors to prosecute Social Security fraud. They did the same with the IRS. So how do you expect to catch these examples of fraud if you're not willing to pay for the employees to go out and do the investigation to catch these people committing fraud? So sometimes we need to invest in our government programs to make sure they're clean and effective, and this is one of them. Thank you.